Hey, Shalom Akim. Call halal Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, Bahashim Kokodash, and of course, double honors go out to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. This is Naaman with the DC camp. And wouldn't you know it, now, this has come to light, of course, beforehand, but it doesn't hurt to reemphasize it, all right? Because a lot of our people are still in the dark about this or left undecided, all right? They believe everything that come out of these devils' mouth. And we tried to tell everybody that this was one big ass charade, all right? This is a cover or a distraction to hide what's really going down, all right? Now these other experts have come out, and then specifically in this article right here, it says coronavirus may be a blood vessel disease, which explains everything, because the symptoms that the people are having don't match up what they're telling you, all right? And I believe it was Italy that did autopsies on the bodies that supposedly died from coronavirus, and they found out that no, it's not what they were telling the people, and what it came down to is blood clots and things of that nature. In other words, things having to do with blood vessels, all right? And as it turns out, for that, they just recommend, I think it was 100 milligrams of aspirin, something like that. Anything to keep the blood thin, all right? So, here we go. It says, and of course, this is from, audioburst.com, Cyber Talk Radio. It says, story, the coronavirus pandemic is still with us and we'll cover it. 19 was initially thought to be a respiratory disease. Many of the symptoms have another thing in common: poor blood circulation and blood vessel damage. 40% of deaths from coronavirus related to cardiovascular complications. For more on how this disease is starting to look like a vascular infection instead of a purely respiratory one, we'll speak to Dana Smith, senior writer at Elemental. I mean, it's a really bizarre infection, and I want to be clear, all right? So let's go ahead and play a little bit of this.
For more on how this disease is starting to look like a vascular infection instead of a purely respiratory one, we'll speak to Dana Smith, senior writer at Elemental.
I mean, it's a really bizarre infection, and I want to be clear, coronavirus is definitely still infecting the lungs. People do still have pneumonia like we initially thought they did, but like you said, there's a lot of really bizarre other symptoms that have emerged, things like strokes and blood clots, a lot of cardiovascular complications that you don't typically see with a normal respiratory disease. So it's emerged in the last month or two that it could be that the virus is not only infecting cells in the lungs and the respiratory tract, but also infecting blood vessel cells. And that's really unique. Not many viruses do this, and we don't think there's any other respiratory viruses, as far as we know, that do this also. So the original SARS virus, influenza viruses don't infect these blood vessel cells. So it's really unique for SARS-CoV-2, the novel coronavirus in particular, and it could explain a lot of these really strange and really deadly complications that we're seeing.
So let's talk a little bit about how it progresses through the body. SARS-CoV-2 goes through the body and connects to these ACE2 receptors that are usually in the nose and throat. And from there, what happens, it can start destroying some lung tissue, and it can break open some blood vessels. And then it can start attaching to all these other cells that have to do with the blood vessels. They're called endothelial cells. And then it creates this immune response, and then everything starts going haywire. But it seems that all these other side effects seem to be kind of coming from the blood vessel problems.
So we know that SARS-CoV-2 gets into the virus, has to latch onto these ACE2 receptors. And there are ACE2 receptors all through your nose and your respiratory tract and in your lungs. They're actually all through your body. There's a ton in the intestines. There's some even in the brain. And they're also on these blood vessel cells. So we think that, just like we've always thought about, the virus gets into the body through the nose and throat, which is why you still need to wash your hands, don't touch your face, avoid being around people who are coughing. All the standard recommendations and protocol are still the same with this new development. So we still get infected through the respiratory tract. and then the virus travels down into the lungs where it is still causing damage and pneumonia. But then the unique part is this kind of final step where it does actually get into the blood vessel cells, still activating on those ACE2 receptors on the blood vessel cells. And from there, it can travel everywhere in the body. And so that's why we start seeing these really bizarre symptoms like the COVID toes that people are talking about. So it could be a problem with circulation all the way to your digits, your fingers and toes. It's why you start seeing the blood clots. It's why we're seeing potentially damage in the intestines and the liver and the kidneys. Really serious diseases cause a lot of inflammation and can cause those organs.
See, that's just the thing. There's a whole lot of confusion about this, all right? Certainly there's something there, but either they're not telling us everything, or this is a complete BS, all right? Now, one would think something was so contagious as this is purported to be. Why do you have things like Metro Center and public transportation where a whole host of people congregate, especially in the cities? Shouldn't that have been completely shut down? And you notice the initial shutdown, from that point on, then things began to lax until what? The George Floyd incident. And then they started getting on people. I mean, it was an opportunity, at the very least, for them to say, wait a minute, things were dying down. People were starting to pick up on the BS. And wait a minute. Then the George Floyd thing happens, and now they're getting on people for congregating in protest, saying, well, now we've had another spike in the cases, in the number of cases of COVID-19. So clearly they're using this, all right, to their advantage. Because we all should have guessed by now, what's the number one rule of thumb in incidents like this? Follow the money. And in this case, this is just a distraction because they want everything to go digital, all right? So all you clowns up there that have made the greenback your god, guess what? He getting ready to do away with that, and everything is going to be digital. That way he can monitor, all right? This all boils down to more control over the people. Same thing with these masks. How many times do you have to hear that these masks is just a placebo? It's not going to stop anything. A virus is 1,000 times smaller than a bacteria, all right? Like, duh. They're keeping you occupied while they make their moves. And you also got these 5G towers that are going up everywhere, all right? These people are making moves. They're trying to reestablish. This is a global reset they're initiating, all right? Global reset. All these CEOs from these various companies, Fortune 500 firms and things of that nature, stepped down within the last year. I wonder why. Not even a year. We're talking maybe 7, 8 months, something like that. Just resign. That's because they know something's coming down the pipe. Not something, but they know what's going on. All right? But they're going to leave the general pop just there. You also have to remember that this is about depopulation also. You got Agenda 21, Georgia Guidestones. All right? They want, ultimately, to get the population down to what they consider manageable, to around 500 million. That way they can enjoy all the resources. Because what? How do they see the average Joe? They see them as useless eaters. They're cattle, goyim. All right? These are the pretender Jews. All right? So let's
a lot of really bizarre other symptoms that have emerged, things like strokes everywhere, and the ability to your digits. It's why you have kind of overactive immune response, which is what we thought was happening with COVID-19 to begin with. And that still could be the case, but the evidence is mounting that there's this kind of other route that the virus is using to infect and cause damage in these other organ systems as well.
So there you go. So let's get some scriptures, because we all know that this is not going to work. Ultimately, it's going to backfire. You know, Job 20th chapter just sums that up. But this is Job 15 and 35, talking about the elite and those that are working for them. All right, it says they conceive mischief and bring forth vanity, and their belly prepare deceit. All right, let's go into that vanity. In this case, vanity means, this is Strong's H205. Awan. All right, trouble, wickedness, sorrow. That's about what they're about to bring. Idolatry, trouble of iniquity. Iniquity, which is what? Sin, wickedness. All right. So let's read that again. They conceive mischief and bring forth wickedness, and their belly prepareth deceit. Let's get some more. Let's go to Proverbs. Well, actually, let's go to Isaiah 59. And let's see. Verse 4 says, none calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. Look at this place, especially America, and everybody's sick of this place. I'm talking about the other world community, the other nations. None calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity. Again, that vanity. Let's go and let's just double check. Whoops, this thing has frozen up on me. Salakia. I gotta go out and come back in. Here it is. None calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity and speak lies. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity. It already just answered itself, but just to make my point, vanity. All right. This is Strong's H8414. Tha'awa. All right. Formlessness, confusion, unreality, emptiness, nothingness, wasteland, wilderness, place of chaos, order, apkeo. Remember that. All right. Naught, vain, waste. Again, confusion. All right. They hatch cockatrice eggs, verse 5, and weave the spider's web. He that eateth of their eggs dieth, and that which is crushed breaketh out into a viper. All right. 6, their webs shall not become garments, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. Their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity, wasting and destruction are in their paths. And that's a lot more where that came from. Trust you me. All right. Now we go to, gotta wrap this up. We go to Hosea 10 and 13. Talking about these wicked elite, these Edomite devils. It says, ye have plowed wickedness, ye have reaped iniquity, ye have eaten the fruit of lies, because thou didst trust in thy way, in the multitude of thy mighty men. And that's credo of Esau, Edom, the so-called white man, down through the ages. Might makes right. All right. Now, let's go to Psalms 10 and 7. It says, his mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages, and the secret places doth he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. He lieth in wait secretly as a lion in his den. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. And in this case, the poor is what? The Israelites. He doth catch the poor when he draweth them into his net. All right. Let's go to, I'll wrap it up with this one. This is Proverbs 24 and 2. It says, for their heart studieth destruction, and their lips talk of mischief. That's all they're preoccupied with, creating weapons of war, whether it be your conventional armaments, your nuclear, or those things you cannot see that cause pestilence, germ warfare, and things of that nature. That's what they're constantly preoccupied with. Verse 2 again, for their heart studieth destruction, and their lips talk of mischief. All right, so with that, wow, I hope whoever views this is edified. I might try to get a few comments here. Let's see. Thunderstorm says, virus? The WHO fabricates the numbers to keep up their funding. People pass every day, and most are counted as a COVID-19 stick. See, people becoming aware of the BS. User 1870, what a leap. First it was from bats. Now it's from bad blood. Next it'll be the air. Ooh, they already tried that. And social contact. Looks like we are being played big time. What's another one? Neil Calvillo, a blood vessel disease? Those are not contagious diseases. I'm not going to even say that name, but it says, oh, nice, because I was so confused. Now it all makes sense. What the F? Some BS. All right. So see? All right, once again, oops. Well, that's not the one.
The coronavirus pandemic.
It says coronavirus may be a blood vessel disease, which explains everything, from audioburst.com. All right, and of course I'll post the link. All right, so with that, once again, call Halal Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shah, Bahashim Karkadash, double honors. Once again, the apostles of Great Millstone, teaching us his truth. Salutations to the Akim out there on the highways and byways, pushing his truth, all honesty and sincerity, while trying to wake up the remaining hopeful elect. So with that, Shalom.